I think that one went too far. You know what I'm saying? Honestly, because in all, and I think I'd like to think that right now I see that she's super successful in everything she's doing. I've always said I wish her all the best. I'd like to think that if she's going to be 100% honest, she knows that I never had anything but the best intentions for her, right? And the way that things transpired in that moment that it did, we were at an expression.
Hold on to your seats because Mona Scott just shocked the world with a move that will have love and hip-hop fans screaming. Wait, Whip, you read that right? Mona Scott is firing none other than Kirk Frost, Rasheeda, and Joc. And no, this isn't some sort of publicity stunt or part of the latest season's drama. This is the real deal, but the big question is why what could possibly be the breaking point that made Mona Scott, the mastermind behind it, all turn on her own stars like this? Was it Kirk's latest no-show antics, Rasheeda trying to play puppet master behind the scenes? Or was it the shady secretive meetings between Kirk and Joc that raised major red flags? Are we about to witness a full-blown reality TV war? And get this, reports are now coming in that there's more drama brewing off camera than ever before. Is there more to this scandal than meets the eye? Stick around because we're diving deep into the explosive details that you won't hear anywhere else. Mona Scott may have just pulled the biggest power move in reality TV history. Don't go anywhere because this is just getting started. Hold on to your seats because what we're about to reveal will shatter everything you thought you knew about love and hip-hop. Atlanta Mona Scott, the queen behind the show, just made a decision that's sending shockwaves through the entertainment world. She's just fired some of the show's biggest stars, Kirk, Rasheeda, and Joc. And it's not for the reasons you think. This is a tale of betrayal, drama, and power plays that have been brewing behind the scenes for months. And trust me, you do not want to miss this. Mona Scott has always been known for her no-nonsense attitude, but this time she's gone to the extreme. The decision to fire Kirk, Rasheeda, and Joc didn't come out of nowhere. It was the culmination of years of backstage drama, egos clashing, and too many secrets being kept for comfort. But the biggest shock, they weren't just fired for bad behavior on set. Oh no, there's a much deeper conspiracy at play here. This is bigger than just a few late arrivals and on-set tantrums. It's about loyalty or the lack of it. Let's break this down. First up, Kirk, the man who's been a staple on Love and Hip Hop Atlanta for years. If you've watched the show, you know that Kirk's behavior hasn't exactly been exemplary. But it's not just about the usual bad boy antics. He wasn't just showing up late, missing calls, and avoiding the production team. He was actively undermining the entire production. Imagine a guy who thinks he's untouchable, missing calls from the network and production team, showing up hours late, and acting like everyone else should adjust to his schedule. That's Kirk in a nutshell. But Mona had had enough. She knew that if Kirk was going to treat the show like an afterthought, it was time to send a message. You either respect the process or you're out. Now let's talk about Rasheeda, the love and hip-hop princess. Rasheeda is known for her strong presence on screen, but behind the scenes, she was trying to pull some major power plays. Rasheeda, like Kirk, started making demands about how the narrative should go. She wasn't just content with her role. She wanted control of the entire story. Rasheeda wasn't showing up to scenes, refusing to film the moments that didn't align with her version of the truth. She wanted to be the one pulling the strings. She wanted to control how the show played out. She pressured Mona to make changes, manipulating the situation to suit her needs. But Mona wasn't having any of it. Rasheeda's constant demands were causing tension behind the scenes, and Mona wasn't about to let her star think she could run the show. This was a whole new level of manipulation. Rasheeda wasn't just refusing to film. She was trying to rewrite the entire narrative of the show, and Mona Scott was seeing right through it. This wasn't about a few bad days at work. This was about a complete lack of respect for the team, and most importantly, for Mona's vision. If Rasheeda wasn't going to play by the rules, she had no place on the show. And when Mona makes a decision, there's no going back. Now, you've got Kirk and Rasheeda, two of the most powerful figures on the show, pulling strings and acting like the production team is at their mercy. But guess what? There's more under. Joc, the man who's been a bit of a wild card on the show. While he wasn't as notorious for on-set drama, his relationship with Kirk was a recipe for chaos. These two were more than just co-stars, they were partners in crime. Joc and Kirk became thick As thieves behind the scenes, they weren't just talking about their roles on the show, they were plotting their next moves. And when you start plotting against Mona Scott, well, let's just say things get messy. So what was this plot? Kirk and Joc weren't just acting like a couple of mischievous guys trying to cause some drama. Oh no, they were making deals with other networks trying to put together a new show that didn't involve Mona Scott at all. They were planning to cut Mona out and create a whole new platform for themselves. That's right, they weren't just talking behind Mona's back, they were actively trying to replace her. If this sounds shady to you, it's because it is, and Mona, being the savvy producer that she is, knew exactly what was happening. The final straw came when Kirk and Joc's shady behavior went from whispers to full-blown drama. Kendra, a name you'll hear a lot in the next chapter, became the focal point of this whole mess. Kendra was connected to both Kirk and Joc in ways that didn't sit well with their respective partners, Rasheeda and Joc's wife. There were rumors flying about the nature of their relationships, and things were heating up fast. Kirk made some shady comments about Kendra, which did not sit well with Rasheeda. In fact, this scandal became a major storyline off camera, and it was about to explode. Things took a turn for the worse when the drama finally spilled onto set. We're talking full-blown altercations. Rasheeda started calling out producers, claiming the show was fake and demanding that certain scenes be reshot to fit her narrative. It wasn't just drama on screen, it was spilling into the production process itself. The fight got so heated that security had to be called, and Kirk even had the audacity to try to stop filming, demanding that the cameras be turned off. At this point, Mona had no choice, the line had been crossed. And just like that, Mona Scott pulled the trigger. She terminated their contracts. No final episode, no tearful goodbyes, just a cold, calculated "you're out." The news broke like wildfire, and people couldn't believe it. How could Mona, the woman who made these stars, let them go so easily? But Mona's decision wasn't just about the show. It was about respect, loyalty, and maintaining control of her empire. Kirk, Rasheeda, and Joc had all crossed a line, and Mona was done playing games. She wasn't going to let anyone sabotage her vision for the show. As Mona Scott fired off those contracts, the entire entertainment world was left in shock. And it wasn't just about losing a few stars. This was the implosion of Love and Hip Hop Atlanta, the show that had dominated reality TV for years. Let's be real, folks, when you start messing with Mona, you better be prepared for the consequences. And Kirk, Rasheeda, and Joc, they were about to learn the hard way that there's no comeback from this kind of betrayal. Now, what really went down behind closed doors? Well, I've got the inside scoop straight from the anonymous sources who've been spilling the tea. Trust me, you won't believe the depths of this drama. Let's start with Kirk and Rasheeda. What we didn't know was that these two weren't just trying to rewrite the show's narrative. They were secretly plotting to destroy Mona's control over the entire Love and Hip Hop franchise. As their behavior became more erratic, whispers started to spread that Kirk and Rasheeda had been reaching out to rival networks. The goal, a new reality show where they could be the stars without the constraints of Mona's iron grip. That's right, they were undermining the very show that made them famous. This wasn't just a simple power grab. It was an outright betrayal of the woman who'd given them their platforms. But the story doesn't end there. These two were also trying to play the victim card. Rasheeda, in particular, began spreading rumors that she wasn't being treated fairly by the network. She claimed that the production team was purposely editing her scenes to make her look bad. As her frustration grew, she started demanding to control more of her narrative. She wanted to be the one telling the story, not just a part of it. And when Mona denied her requests, Rasheeda became unstoppable, trying to rally other cast members against Mona's vision. Kirk wasn't any better. His late arrivals and constant avoidance of calls made it clear that he wasn't interested in being part of the team anymore. But what Mona didn't know at the time was that Kirk had been meeting with producers from other networks. He and Joc were working behind the scenes to create their own show, secretly planning to cut Mona completely out of the equation. But when Mona found out, she wasted no time taking action. Now let's talk about Joc, because his involvement is where things get really interesting. You see, Joc was the glue that kept the drama between Kirk and Rasheeda together. He was constantly fueling the fire, making sure the tensions never cooled down. Joc was also the one who whispered sweet lies into both Kirk's and Rasheeda's ears, convincing them that they could go on without Mona. But here's the kicker, Joc wasn't just making trouble on Love and Hip Hop Atlanta. he was actively scheming with Kirk to create their own show. They had already lined up meetings with producers from other networks trying to get a deal in place. But all the while they were pretending to be loyal to Mona, all while plotting behind her back. The best part, Joc and Kirk were using Kendra, the same Kendra who had been in the middle of all their relationship drama, as a pawn in their game. They knew that the public would be watching the Kendra drama closely, so they intentionally fueled the fire to keep the spotlight on them. They were playing both sides, acting like everything was fine on Love and Hip Hop, while secretly plotting their escape. And then came the fateful day, the day when Mona Scott got wind of what was going on behind her back. Security was called production by a massive shakeup, and the cameras weren't rolling for long before Mona snapped. Rasheeda had been a bit of a wild card on set recently after months of refusing to film scenes she didn't approve of and creating unnecessary drama with the producers. Her final blow came when she exploded during a filming session. She called the scene fake and went off on the producers, claiming they were trying to control her image. At this point, Rasheeda was completely out of control, and her outburst had the crew scrambling. Security had to step in, and Kirk even tried to stop the cameras from filming. And that's when Mona had enough. She realized that if these two were willing to cross the line this far, publicly humiliating the crew, sabotaging the show's direction, and actively working against the network, then they had no place on Love and Hip Hop Atlanta anymore. She immediately terminated their contracts and made a statement to the public: no one is bigger than the show. But wait, there's more. Kirk and young Joc were not done yet. They thought they could make their exit without Mona knowing the full extent of their plans. But Mona wasn't going to let them get away with it that easily. What Mona did next was both calculated and ruthless. She used her insider connections to leak the details of the secret meetings Kirk and Joc had with other networks. The media went wild. The betrayal of Mona Scott had reached new heights, and public opinion was turning against the fired stars. The very fans who had once supported Kirk, Rasheeda, and Joc now saw them as backstabbers, opportunists, and liars. Mona had set the stage for the next big scandal, and the fans were eating it up. She had no intention of letting them go quietly. Mona wasn't just protecting her brand, she was exposing their lies to the world. No one gets to play Mona Scott for a fool, not on her watch. As the drama between Mona Scott, Kirk, Rasheeda, and young Joc continued to unfold, the fallout became even more intense. Mona wasn't just watching from the sidelines anymore. She was fully in control of the narrative, exposing the betrayal and pulling strings behind the scenes. And what happened next was nothing short of explosive. The media went wild, the fans were outraged, and Mona's power was cemented. Everyone knew now that there was no escaping the wrath of Mona Scott, but the true consequences of Kirk, Rasheeda, and Joc's actions were only beginning to surface. With the betrayal now out in the open, the public was furious. Mona had made it clear that she wasn't just firing them, she was destroying their careers. The networks that had been secretly courting Kirk and Joc suddenly found themselves backpedaling. They realized that aligning themselves with these two could be disastrous for their own reputations. Not only did Mona have the power to control the media, but she had the loyalty of a massive fan base that was now eager to see Kirk, Rasheeda, and Joc fall from grace. But the repercussions didn't end there. As the scandal spread, it became clear that legal ramifications were on the horizon. Kirk, Rasheeda, and Joc might have thought they could easily slip away, but the wheels of justice were slowly turning. The media outlets that had been fueling the fire started digging deeper, pulling in sources who had worked closely with the trio. It wasn't long before leaked footage, explosive interviews, and even anonymous whistleblowers began to surface, revealing even more of the hidden agenda these stars had been keeping under wraps. In fact, word on the street was that Kirk and Joc weren't just trying to get their own show, they were looking to steal Mona's entire Love and Hip Hop formula. They were going as far as luring other stars from the show to join their new project, promising them better deals and more control. Mona, however, wasn't about to let them have that easy. She was playing chess, not checkers. She knew exactly how to play the media game, and she had the fans on her side. She used the drama to her advantage, carefully crafting her own narrative. Mona had become the victim in all this, but she was also now seen as a fierce businesswoman who wasn't afraid to take risks. The media couldn't get enough of her, and the ratings for Love and Hip Hop Atlanta skyrocketed. But behind the scenes, Mona wasn't just focusing on her brand. she was also preparing for the next big move. With Kirk Rasheeda and Joc now completely exposed, she started restructuring the love and hip-hop empire. She was cleaning house, making sure that anyone with questionable loyalty was cut out. It was a loyalty test. And if you didn't pass, you were out. Now let's talk about what happened next with Kendra. As we all know, Kendra had been caught up in all the drama between Rasheeda and Kirk. What many people didn't realize, however, was that she had become a pawn in the power struggle. Kirk had been playing both sides, and Kendra had no idea that she was being used as leverage. But when the truth came out about the shady dealings with other networks, Kendra found herself dragged into the mess even further. She was cut off from all the main players, with her own career taking a massive hit. No one wanted to work with her anymore. She had become collateral damage, and Kirk and Joc's attempt to climb to the top. This wasn't just a minor setback for Kendra. It was a full-scale collapse. The public now saw her as just another victim of the betrayal, and she wasn't going to be able to escape the backlash anytime soon. As for Kirk and Rasheeda, the damage to their personal lives was severe. Rasheeda's brand had already been in jeopardy after the outbursts and refusal to cooperate with production. But after the public got wind of the secret show plan and the undermining tactics, her reputation took a massive hit. Rasheeda had been one of the most well-known and respected figures in the show, but all of that was in jeopardy now. Kirk, on the other hand, was completely isolated. He couldn't hide behind the good guy persona anymore. His relationship with Rasheeda was on the rocks, his future in the industry was uncertain, and his reputation had gone from beloved to completely tarnished. And young Joc, oh boy, Joc thought he could walk away unscathed, but he too was facing the fallout. He had been a master manipulator throughout the entire situation, but even he couldn't avoid the consequences of his actions. Joc's career had been on the rise, but with his involvement in the backstabbing plot now exposed, he found himself alienated from the very people he had relied on. All of this led to one massive, inescapable truth: the betrayal was real, and Mona Scott had won. She had reclaimed control over the narrative, completely destroyed her adversaries, and exposed their lies. She had turned their own plotting against them, and in doing so had secured her own position as the undeniable force behind love and hip-hop. But the fallout wasn't just about Kirk, Rasheeda, and Joc losing their careers. The real question now was, what did this mean for the future of love and hip-hop? Atlanta Mona had been forced to make a hard decision. She had to rid the show of anyone who might be working behind her back. But she also knew that the fans would be watching closely to see how she handled the situation. Would she continue with the show, or was this the beginning of a whole new chapter? It was clear that Mona wasn't done cleaning house. As the audience watched the aftermath unfold, it was clear that more stars were going to be cut. Loyalty was the only thing that mattered now. The message had been sent loud and clear: cross Mona Scott, and your career was done. Wow, what a roller coaster. Mona Scott has exposed the truth, and now it's clear betrayal doesn't pay off in the world of reality TV. But with all this drama and chaos, the real question is what happens next. Will Kirk, Rasheeda, and young Joc ever recover from this scandal? Or is their time in the spotlight over for good? If you're as shocked as we are, don't miss a single update. Smash that like button, hit subscribe, and turn on notifications, because we'll keep bringing you the latest juiciest stories as they unfold. And hey, we want to hear from you. What do you think about Mona Scott's big move? Was it justified, or is she just playing a dangerous game? Drop your thoughts in the comments below, and let's talk. Keep your eyes on the drama, because you know we'll keep you in the loop with all the crazy updates. Stay tuned.